ado, I'm going to introduce Schell. Neil is an actor, acting coach, director, and producer, and he's from Saskatchewan originally. Neil has played many roles involved with film and TV, including producing, acting, and directing. He has directed over 100 episodes and short films in both Canada and Kenya. Really interesting project you're currently working on, I read about. Neil's most recent expansion in the industry has been in directing. He has directed 120 episodes and several short films for television in both Kenya and Canada. Directing has come naturally to Neil, having a strong background in editing, acting, and coaching actors. Working with extremely low budgets and compressed time schedules. Nobody in this room knows what that's like, of course. Neil has had to complete the direction of over 3,000 pages of script, 6,000 camera setups, and work with over 250 actors. Directing under these circumstances challenges one's ability as a filmmaker and raises the necessity level which makes a better filmmaker. One has to draw from every fiber of their existence to make a high-quality product. So we're going to hear more about that from Neil. So please welcome Neil. He'll be speaking on emerging markets and breaking down barriers.
Wow. Closest thing to a rock star for me. Thanks. Yeah, I was born in Crapel. I'm sure you guys know where that is, if you're from here anyway. And I grew up in Regina. I went to St. Mary's Elementary School, Tom Collegiate for a year. And then I moved out west. Haven't been back since, except to visit. Wow, quiet bunch, okay. You're just getting started, okay. Don talked to me about doing this because I produced and directed a lot of television in Africa, Kenya specifically. I've traveled to 5 countries there now, and I'm pretty familiar with what goes on in that sector in terms of content and how it's consumed, which I think will be of interest to you because it's very different than here. And because of the internet and what we have access to, it's really open to you as well if you do it right. And there are a lot of people there. There's ways to, you know, make some money at it too, which we have to do. But I'm gonna embrace more of the whole, at first, the third world in general, what's happening there, because, you know, we're kind of on an island here and we don't really know what's going on. And that's the truth. If any of you have been over there, you know what I'm talking about. I have this kind of passion that I've developed about Africa. I was invited to go there. Actually, what happened was I was coaching some actors in Edmonton. I'll just give you a little history of how I got there, because it wasn't like, oh, wow, I really want to go to Kenya and shoot television. That's not how it happened. In fact, when I was invited to go, I was like, Kenya, I know it's in Africa, but I have no idea where. I had no clue. But anyway, I taught some actors in Edmonton many years ago now. And one of them was Kenyan, and it turned out later on, she became a producer and invited me to train some actors because this large pay TV company called Mnet wanted her actors trained for television. So she suggested me. She actually wasn't the head producer, but so I went there for a couple of weeks, taught 19 actors. And then she went on her own, developed her own content, and had me direct. That's why I went there. And I wound up being asked to stay over and over and over. So I wound up spending most of 7 years there from 2010 to 2017. And I've since kind of relocated to Cape Town for reasons I'll explain later on at the end of this, near the end of this presentation. Yeah, so what I saw when I got there was like, oh, wow, my God, this is Africa? I had no clue. I had no idea what it was really like, and probably if you haven't been there, you wouldn't know either, except, you know, what we're told, how everything's so terrible. And it's not. It's not great, but it's not terrible. And it's a very emerging market, which is the title. Interesting. So let's get into this a little bit. Anyway, no, I didn't really get into what I wanted to say. Here's what I have right now. This is what I'm following in my purpose, I guess, passion, is to kind of connect the two continents and get them to understand each other better through story, through television, through movies, whatever way I can, because it is a complete mix-up on both sides. I mean, they really don't know. Canada, oh yeah, that's part of the United States, right? I mean, really, they really think that. They think we're the same. Just like you might think Tanzania is like Kenya, like Uganda, right? Right. Or Africa's a country, you know, stuff like that. That works. Okay, good. So when I say content, I'm going to be meaning movies and television series. I'm going to go over some statistics of content worldwide, how it's consumed, how it has been consumed, and which way it's going, which I'm sure you're familiar with, but a little more detail in the third world, where most people live, unlike you guys. You spoiled brats. Okay, so it's traditionally consumed through televisions and movie theaters, of course. We all know that it's going toward the internet. It can be consumed on not only televisions through the internet, but also computer screens and mobile devices. This is an interesting statistic. And I brought this up because we are a movie-going culture. Now, this USA thing is us too, right? Like we're considered USA when they talk about movies. I guess you know that, box office and all that. There are 125 movie screens for every million people in the USA. In China, there are 23. In Kenya, there are 2.3. It's not a movie-going culture. Africa is not a movie-going culture. They don't go to the theater. They don't go to watch movies there. They can't afford it. And there aren't hardly any screens, as you can see. They're only in the major cities, and they're very few. Like, I think Regina has probably as many as a 4 million city Nairobi has, maybe more. So that's not how they consume movies. They consume movies, and China is moving up. You know, it's like this big market. It's breaking open. Everyone knows about it. It's like, you know, that's where you can make some money if they let you screen your movie there. But it's still not a movie-going culture in general. With the mass population, it's not. That's the screens. Now, I don't know if you can see. Can you see that? Yeah, sort of? Well, I'll read it. As soon as I put my glasses on. TV households. USA, 118.4 million for 325 million people. That's 1 to 2.7 in a ratio. China, 378 million for 1.37 billion people. That's 1 to 3.6 ratio. So it's a little less. But there are a lot of TVs in China, obviously. Sub-Saharan Africa, which is specifically what I want to talk about, 55.34 million for 900 million people. Okay, that's 1 to 16. A much lower ratio. There are not a lot of TVs there. Okay, not like here. I'm trying to get you to understand, and I hope I do it, that what it is like there and how people consume things. In the villages outside of the city, there may be one TV that somebody sets up and makes people pay to watch. And they, you know, or they have a bar or something like that, but they charge you to watch a movie, that sort of thing. It's just not in every house. So this is a different culture. It's a different way of consuming. Quite different. So, obviously, what this is about and what you're interested in is the internet and how it's going to be utilized by you to sell your content, and get people to want it and market. I'm not going to get into the marketing too much because I will give you hints at it. I don't know exactly how to do it. This is a very ever-changing market. It rapidly changes, as you know. You know, some things are hugely exciting and important on the internet, and then they just disappear. So it's the same in Africa. It's not that different. But the advent of the internet and nonlinear consumption of content has changed the whole game, as you know. And Africa is no different. People are online there. In fact, well, not exactly online, but this is something I encountered 10 years ago, which I thought was pretty unusual. I was given a little trip to the Masai Mara. Excuse me. Masai is a tribe there. Mara means plains, and it's a park where they have every kind of animal. So we're going to have a guide. A Maasai warrior, you know, he's got his robes on and stuff, and he's a tracker actually. He's called a tracker. So we're gonna track these animals, and we're in the you know, four-wheel drive, and we're driving around, and here's the tracker on his cell phone calling his buddies. You know, like, where are the lions? Let's go see them. Cell phones are everywhere in Kenya, even there. So the cell phone has changed everything, as you know, and we'll get into how that works there. So there are 7.6 billion people. I'd like to know who counts them all, but anyway, that's what we're told. 53% of the population is online. Active mobile social users, 2.95 billion. 52.2% of global web pages are served on mobile, okay? Over 2 billion. That's in the world. Now, Asia, 65% are served up on mobile, almost 3 billion. Africa is 64% almost. These are, let me just get these statistics right, 2.96. And 338 million in Africa. Kenya is 83% on mobile, okay? Nigeria, 81, India, 79, Ghana, 75, South Africa, which is practically first world, 71%. China, 61%. What this tells me is people don't get online with computers as much as they do with mobile phones or tablets. They can't afford them. They don't have Wi-Fi access. There's no infrastructure like we have here, you know, that was in place. Oh, the phone lines were used by Bell, so they give you Wi-Fi, get you online, or cable that you had from Rogers or whoever. That infrastructure is not there. It's not in place, and it's being put in place with fiber. They're not doing any of the cable or phone line stuff. There are no in-house phones anywhere wired. It's all cell phone. So that's how people get online. That's how they watch video. That's how they consume your content, okay? And it's usually not a tablet. It's a cell phone. It's a smartphone. Compared to North America, only 39% of the web pages are served up on mobile. These numbers are to give you the concept of what people do there and why. It's not like here. Now, this is sort of a prediction, but globally, 78.4% will use their mobile phones to watch digitally streamed content this year. Okay, so streaming, that's you know, over the top, whatever. It's subscription video on demand like Netflix or Hulu or whoever. Transactional video on demand. Bell kind of has that. Producers can do it on your own website. And there are people doing that in Africa as well. Advertisement video on demand like YouTube. These are the main ways that people connect with your content online. You already know all this, I know, but Netflix is in Africa. It's accessible in all 54 countries. There are 54. But you'll be surprised at the numbers that I'll show you about that. So this was basically access to the internet. Asia is via mobile, 65%, Africa, 64%. Between 90 and 98% of all internet connections are via mobile networks in rural areas in sub-Saharan Africa. Now, I'm showing you this because Africa, you know, people tend to forget about the north part of Africa when they think of Africa. At least I do. You know, you're thinking lions and gorillas in the mountains and stuff like that. But this MENA, this is Middle East, North Africa. It's a very different market than sub-Saharan. They're completely different. Different economics, different social viewpoints, different ways of consuming. They're completely different, and I don't know much about it myself. Mostly Arabic languages. And then you cross the Sahara and you're down into sub-Saharan Africa, where there are many languages, but a few predominant ones that most people use. There are many tribes. I mean, I think Kenya has 40-some tribes itself. Tanzania might have even more. I mean, it's just innumerable, and they all speak their own languages. So you won't need to worry about that, but that's just something to say, you know. Internet streaming in Africa. Okay, so we have Netflix, which is from the USA. Showmax is a South African-based streaming company. They are owned by Naspers, I think it's called, Naspers, which also owns the largest pay TV company on the continent called Mnet. They're also called MultiChoice. I think that's more about their channels. They are the monster. Mnet is the big one. So they own Showmax, and they are working together to get their content out to Africans. Kwese iFlix. Kwese is a company based in South Africa. It was started by a guy named Strive. I forget his last name, but I love his first name, Strive. He's a billionaire. He's from Zimbabwe, I believe, and he teamed up with iFlix. iFlix is based out of Malaysia. They're the largest streaming company in that area. They are huge there, and they're expanding into other continents, including Europe and Africa. And they teamed up with Kwese because I don't know exactly why, but they did not long ago, like a few months ago. And theirs is more of a video on demand, so you pay for what you want to watch. Iroko TV is based out of Nigeria. I believe he started on YouTube, but now he has subscription, and he's got huge investors, fairly young guy, and it's all pretty much all Nigerian movies. Anybody here seen a Nigerian movie before? Yeah. Oh my God. Now, I want to talk about them a little bit so you get an idea of this marketplace. Nigerian movies, they started making them, I don't know, back in the 90s, I think, or even maybe earlier. And the whole industry was kind of like, you get a script all done by Monday, you start shooting Monday, you finish it out of post by Friday, and you put it on the market on the weekend. And you triple or quadruple or even more your money, 10x. And believe me, they look like they were made in a week. They really do. The idea was not so much about, we're going to get an Academy Award in Los Angeles. It's more like, we want to tell our stories. We want to relate to our people. We want to show people that, who we are. And it took off. The distribution system is like that. It's changing now because it's not like that so much, but that still exists to some degree. They are the second largest producer of films in the world, behind India. And they crank them out like crazy. The quality is starting to rise because Nigerians are having more access to international content than they did before. At that time, it was all DVD. So I think VHS at one time, but DVDs, DVDs. They still have DVDs over there. They still sell them that way. And that's how people watch them. They are super popular in Africa. They are the movie stars, the ones that are in the movies of the continent. They all know who they are. They are like any Hollywood movie star would be to us. And the whole continent consumes their content, even though the quality is incredibly inferior. The understanding of how to make a movie isn't there. They just sort of wing it. The stories, though, relate to them, and the way they interact with each other through family, friends, that sort of thing. What they agree upon, what they disagree upon, how to interrelations and how they work. They're slightly different than here, and they've scored big time. Kenyans love their stuff more than they like their own. South Africans watch it. It's just big. So Iroko really took off. But like anybody else, they have to get new content. They have to improve their content and expand a bit. YouTube obviously is there. It's everywhere. YouTube videos, I don't know if movies or TV will take off with YouTube down in Africa. It's more of, this is how you do your hair, this is your makeup. Those are the big movies on YouTube, and that's what keeps that alive in that marketplace. Good. Even though Netflix has such incredible content, high quality, and new and exclusive, they don't expect to have 500,000 subscribers until 2020. There's a reason for that. You can get anything they got pirated. I can go get a whole season of any show you love for 50 cents anywhere in Africa. And it's prolific. It's everywhere. And the governments, the politicians are in on it. It's their business. So even though it's illegal, it's like there are shops every few blocks where guys just rip stuff and sell it. So that's not going to change today. And Netflix is really battling that because until they get some real original stuff that Africans like, it won't change that subscription rate by much. And because it's low, I don't know if they're going to invest much into original content from there. They might. They talk about it. They say they will, but not much has happened yet. Iroko had 500,000 in 2013. He started in 2010. I don't know what it is now. They don't reveal them anymore. These guys don't tell you how many subscribers they have. It's not, you can't access that data. Of course, the iFlix says 1.2 million watched this year. They also have live stream for, soccer, football. And they've been pushing into that area as well. It's an interesting company, and they're expanding like mad. They say they want high quality. I've dealt with them. I have a series they're interested in, but they're still in flux with this merger. I don't know what's. They're kind of like not making decisions till January next year. Showmax, I have no idea how many subscribers they have. Showmax is, because it's tied to Mnet, the pay TV company, Giant, they are now, I think, going totally online with all of that content that's been made for many, 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 many years on the continent that Mnet owns. They'll dig it up out of the archives and expand their how much content they have available to the average person. Also, Netflix is kind of expensive. I think Iroko is it's really cheap, I think it's like $13 for the year to subscribe, something like that. So you're looking at a marketplace that's, people don't have a lot of money, but there are a lot of people. This is the thing. This is the thing that's enticing, and it's a market that you could utilize and make use of, either directly or indirectly. They do like Western content. There's no question about it, because of all the pirating that goes on. They definitely watch the good stuff, but. If you look at the success of Iroko, they love their own, and they're not judgmental about the quality of it. They want, almost all the Nigerian movies have this thing called juju in it, which is, black magic or whatever. They call it juju. They all have that kind of stuff. They have certain things. There's always love triangles and stuff going on, and, because polygamy is it's there. And, it's thought about in a very different way than we think about it. So it's in their stories because it's there, and that they can relate to that. And the more you can relate to the faces and the way people do things, the more you want to watch it. So, yeah, that's what we're looking at this point in time, okay? Those kind of numbers. So how do they get on the internet? We've already established that. It's by mobile. Smartphones have doubled on the continent from 200 to 200 million in the past 2 years. It doubled. The average smartphone in Africa sells for $165. That's nothing to you guys, but to them it's a lot of money. Most people, I can't say everyone for sure, the lowest cost is $50. This is the advent of these Chinese smartphones. China, as you know or may not know, is kind of a, what would you call it, neo-colonialist right now. They're like lending tons of money to African countries in exchange for business agreements. And of course, they have to pay the money back. But China is really getting involved. And one of the things that's happening is these smartphones are being sold everywhere. And this gives the average person access to being online and watching your TV and your TV shows and movies. There are some drawbacks. There's a lack of infrastructure, which I kind of talked about already. There are solutions to this, which I'll cover in a bit. The cost of data, you know, if you're going to watch a movie on your phone through data, you're going to pay for the data. And so there's that and your cost that you're going to have them pay for your content. So that is a bit restrictive. But there are different solutions to that. And one of them I didn't write down, so I'll have to tell you about it. And then the cost of the devices, which is coming down. So solutions are happening. And they are satellite, which I'll show here later on. But there was one just launched in April, I believe, that now provides internet connection to the whole continent. I don't know the cost of that yet. It's pretty new. And they have to, you know, connect with all the various companies that distribute it, but it's up there and it's happening right now. Cost of data. Android Go is a solution to that. I don't know if you guys know about Android Go. It reduces how much data is used in order to watch a movie, for example. The infrastructure is being improved. There's a company called Econet I think they're out of London. Well, actually, it's owned by this Quesse company is owned by Econet, and that's the company that this Strive guy owns. Econet is putting in fiber infrastructure through, I think, 5 countries, from Zimbabwe to Zambia to a few others. I think it moves right up into maybe even Burundi and Rwanda. But it's a major undertaking. It started 3 years ago, I think, and they're still doing that. So that's an optic line. And then cost of devices is dropping, as I showed you earlier. Yeah, this is the satellite, Avanti satellite. So that reaches these remote areas because some of them don't even have electricity. You know, the infrastructure is pretty poor, but it's being worked on. It's all changing. Chinese money is helping with that, actually. And of course, the Americans want to get in there as well, and Russia, believe it or not. So that's the setup. I wanted to give you a concept of what the internet's like there, how it works, how do people get online. And don't forget, China India's in this too, and China, but I focus on Africa because I know about it. What to produce and distribute. So these demographics are interesting. 60% of the population is 25 or under, is actually under 25. It's supposed to be under 25. That's very different than here. So you have an emerging market in several ways. They're getting more online. They're young, so they'll be online for a long time, and they want a certain type of content at that age. 700 million speak and understand English. It's not their first language, those 700 million, but they do understand it and they can speak it. It's the most spoken language on the continent. 130 million speak French, and 100 million speak Swahili. This is mostly in the eastern part of the continent, like Kenya, Tanzania, Congo as well, and a bit in Uganda. So your productions will be understood. That's what I'm trying to tell you. And don't need to be subtitled. And you can dub it in French, of course. There's a certain kind of French they like there, but that's not hard to get done. So I kind of discussed this already. Netflix, no original content that's local. Most of the big stuff is pirated, so they don't they're not getting a lot of subscribers. Probably most of the people that subscribe are like me, because I subscribed when I was there. I mean, people who are either foreign nationals or they live in the city and they've studied somewhere else, like, in Canada, a lot of Africans study here, or in the UK, Australia, United States. A lot of them are sent to go to college or university and come back. Some of them don't come back, but a lot of them do now, because things are changing. Iroko, local content, mostly Nigerian. They're starting to improve the quality. I think they're even getting involved in producing new stuff. Showmax, similar to Netflix, they are starting some South African original content. So really, Canadians have a gateway to Africa through South Africa. We have a treaty with them for filmmaking and television, and we don't have a treaty with anybody else. They are also very sophisticated in their production companies and equipment and talent. I think one of the recent seasons of Homeland was shot there in its entirety. Big movies you probably know about. I don't want to get into all that, but they're very competent and skilled filmmakers in South Africa, and we have something with them. And the rand is dropping like a rock. Like in the last 3 months, I think it's gone down by 25% or something compared to our dollar. So these are interesting facts. Move forward. I personally have noticed a shift in how business is done for content in Africa. And this is a bit of foreshadowing to me of what's happening there. Pay TV used to be the first window. Okay, let me just describe how content is made there. Most of it is independent. Okay? Like your production company goes out, decides what you want to shoot, gets it scripted, finance it, shoot it, and then you bring it to a network, a broadcaster, pay TV, free to air. That was the traditional, even just 4 years ago. They don't make much of their own content or even finance it, and then you can own it. You own it forever. It's your content. So you can sell it and resell it and do other things with it, whatever you want to do with it. So when you would make content like that, the pay TV companies would want it exclusively for 2 years so that free air couldn't air it and other pay TV competition. So that's what was happening. But now they are now offering to license your content non-exclusively. That's a major shift. And it costs, they're reducing, of course, what they're going to pay for it if it's non-exclusive. I'll tell you the numbers, you'll gasp. Soon. You won't believe it. So free-to-air is reducing their rates for content acquisition, like dropping it completely. They're losing advertisers, they're losing revenue. It's going to the internet. That is happening in a major way, and you can tell by how they're discussing and offering for content. They're also interested in non-exclusive. They never were before. Before I'd sell it to a pay TV company, that was the first window. Second window was free to air, and then I could do whatever I want with it after that. And no one even cared about online rights. It wasn't a thing. That's all changed. Producers are offering video on demand direct to audiences. That's happening in Kenya, and I'm going to be doing it myself. I have a company there. I own half of it. And we are putting our last series we shot online on our website. People will pay for the first season to watch it, then they'll pay for season 2, and so on and so on. Mainly because the offering of license fees from these companies is so low, and yet they want high quality, and it just can't be done. So the shift is happening. Free to air will probably eventually not have any dramatic scripted content, I would think, in a near future. It will be mostly, I'm just being, the genie here, predicting, but it'll be mainly sports and news. News is big there. They're the rock stars, in Africa. They're the biggest stars there are on television. Newscasters make the biggest money, and that's what they sell. So who makes the content? Independent producers make most of the content that's seen in Africa. It's a little different in South Africa. It's not like that, but the rest of the sub-Saharan, we'll deal with that, is mainly done that way. So, like I told you, you come up with an idea, you don't see if the network likes it, because they actually won't read anything. It's crazy. You send them a synopsis and character breakdown, the whole Bible of a series, they'll say, okay, send me a pilot. They won't read it. And they won't say anything about it. They won't say anything about the idea. They just want to see. And a pilot to them is something that's 10 minutes long. So it's more like a proof of concept. And then you shop it around, Do you want this? And you find out and what they're offering, you negotiate, all that kind of stuff, and see if you can shoot it for that budget. That's kind of the way it's been done up until now. As I said, things are changing. Budgets. Wow. Okay, here it comes. The budget. You can do a fairly high-quality show in Kenya for around $3,000 to $4,000, maybe $5,000 an episode. Yeah, I'm not kidding you. Yeah, that's true. That's not a lie. But most people don't do that because they don't get paid that much from the broadcasters. That's a fact. In fact, most content there is done for around $1,000 to $1,500 a minute. An episode. What am I talking about? I kind of slipped into animation there for a second. I have animation, I do too. So budgets are really low in the continent. It's not like that in South Africa. South Africa, they're larger. I think they're even less than they are in Canada. I'm pretty sure they are. They don't have unions there, but they do have kind of structured rates for crew and cast as well, but no unions. It's kind of the Wild West there a bit, the Wild Africa. Distribution. There are distribution companies. There's a very large one. I didn't write it down. It's called Côte West. It's French, for West Coast. COTE and West, OUEST, Côte West. They're the largest distributor of content on the continent. They will buy your content, I'm pretty sure. But you have to have volume, otherwise they don't want to talk to you. They don't offer a lot of money. They give you what's called a minimum guarantee. Upon signing and delivery, they will give you that amount. And then whatever sales they make, it's the 60-40 split. They usually do. You can probably negotiate that if you want, but not by much. And your 60% that is out of the sales will then come off of what they give you as a minimum guarantee. This is very attractive to Africans because they need money. So they go for that kind of thing. And it's a difficult continent to distribute to because there are, wow, I went longer than I thought I would, by a lot. So it's a different place to distribute because there are 54 countries. Therefore, at least 54 broadcast companies, and they're all separate, and they all have different fees. And these guys at Co-West, they kind of know, they know all these people, and they're good to deal with. So I went over this already. The population is below the age of 25, 60%. The consumer spending power has tripled since 2000, and it's going to triple again in less than 10 years. You have some interesting advantages. You can create high quality content, especially in their eyes. It's just amazing to them. I suggest, and this is what I'm trying to do, is creating stories that cross the cultures, cross the continent, cross the ocean. By using characters that are in both, from both continents in your stories. If you want to capitalize big time on this rising market. Whoa, what did I do? Okay, I don't see that. Something came up on the screen here. Utilize the Canadian-South African co-production treaty. Remind me tomorrow, okay. Just recently, the Canadian Media Fund and the National Film and Video Foundation from South Africa announced this co-development incentive. The first intake needs to be submitted for by October 10th. It will run for 3 years. It's $40,000 maximum for development, and only for TV, not for movies. I will tell you, I think we're taking advantage of that. So we'll get into some of the things I've produced, just so you can see. This is a animation, obviously. It's called Maxis. It's something I created. It's an African superhero kid. That thing in his hand is called a rungu. It's a Maasai warrior weapon. Basically, he's handed that rungu from his grandfather. It's the oldest weapon ever made on the continent. He happens to get it passed to him. He doesn't know that. He just thinks it's a dumb tool, and then he discovers and accidentally gets all his superpowers. And he'll be able to travel around the continent. It's for Africans specifically and children there, so they can see their own faces and they can hear about their own stories. They're just going to cover various folklore stories that have been around for probably thousands of years. This is a series I shot 26 episodes of this earlier in the year. It's not been released anywhere yet. They're half-hour episodes. It's about this young woman who's very beautiful, grew up in the ghetto, and hates poverty. So she does whatever she can to get out of it using her beauty. She realizes how she can control men in particular, but other situations as well. She's not the nicest person, but it's very dramatic, kind of soap opera. But this is something Africans love. You know, coming out of poverty is a big deal. Of course, for anyone, actually. We're putting it online and people can buy it by season. And this is another production I have going. I created this originally, 5 years ago. I now have a co-production deal with Original Pictures, Inc. And that's Kim Todd and Nick Hurst. Kim Todd produces Fargo. She's produced Fargo. She's now working on Handmaid's Tale. And we are taking this to Africa it's quite an exciting story. So I'm supposed to wrap up. Is that no questions at all, right? I talked too long. Sorry about that.
Stay up here.